Ready? Well. Okay, I'm going to call us to order at 6 o'clock, and everyone is here except Logan. He had football, and we have a quorum. And Doug, will you lead us in prayer, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, I'm just so thankful for this day. I'm so thankful for you, Lord. Father, I just ask for your protection for those overseas, Lord, and the ones that have lost loved ones. I just ask that you put your hands around them, Father, and just help them through this situation. Father, I pray for this district, from the board to the staff to the students, Lord. I just pray for their health and their success this year. And Father, I just ask that we look towards you in everything that we do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
One
the
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Okay, so we're going to have a public forum on the budget and the tax rate, and there is no one else here, so I'm going to say that we can adjourn the public forum, and we will reconvene and do the open forum. And since no one is here except for us and Mr. Hahn, we will start on new business. We have the consent agenda. Is there any question on what was on the consent agenda? If not, I need a motion.
This is just for 4-H participation.
Yes, sir. We do this every year, just so that they are considered adjunct, and so that the kids, when they miss, it's counted as a good absence for the 4-H kids. Is that right? That's right. Okay. All right, so I need a motion.
I move to approve item 1 of the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion from Doug. Do I have a second? Second from Rusty. All in favor? No opposed, motion carries.
I'm sorry, who did?
It was Doug and Rusty. All right, so now we will go to the regular agenda. And Mr. Hahn, is this you?
I believe so.
Okay.
So the only difference between the budget that I presented to you tonight and the one that we talked about in the first meeting this month is the items that mostly is the items that we talked about in the last meeting. So we didn't have the construction done at the elementary, so I've had to move that $600,000 of that from the current budget. We're going to have it on the next budget. Let me actually look at my notes here, because I put notes in here. So $150,000 is added because of the change in superintendent and the various agreements that went with that. $600,000 to the operations budget, $51,000 for the elementary construction to finish the things that are not going to get done by the end of the year. And I had to slightly increase the gas budget because they have a very high proposed increase coming. So I wanted to be ready for that. Then the other thing that I did, which I didn't put in my notes here, is as you remember, I based the revenue of the budget on 620, it's 607. And however, our current refined ADA is 670. We've increased substantially from what we ended last year. So being a little conservative, I've based the revenue side of the budget on 640, which is still almost a little over $300,000 increase. So that I'm anticipating revenue. So that's the only changes since since the meeting the first week. So do I have any questions on the budget items?
One quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Do you still keep a spreadsheet on utilities?
We do. We're no longer required to post it, but we do keep it. Yes, sir.
Can we just look at it sometime? Not, we
Yep.
don't have to see it right now, but sometime, it kind of helps us see a trend.
Yes, sir.
On utility costs and items. But you're right, gas is going up.
Yeah, I mean, we had a significant electricity increase this last year, and we're going to have just as much of a gas increase. Like, I believe what they sent is that they're going to propose a 29% increase. So, I mean, that's a significant increase. Any other questions?
I got one, and it may not be totally for this, but I'm going to ask it because we talked about last time about the vape detectors in these schools. And I brought it up, and we said we could do that out of our budget
Yes, sir.
versus off the bond.
Yes, sir.
So I was wondering, are we going to have room in the budget if we discuss that and decide to go that route?
Yeah, I mean, it would just come out of the regular, the campus budget, and there is room in there to do that if we decided to do that.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Actually, I take it back. I probably would take that out of a 51, out of a building. Typically something that I add to the building like that, I take out of 51, which once again, there's sufficient room in our operating budget for devices like that.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions?
In the budget, if we do sell Champs, is there anything for storage, or is that going to come in the bond if we do the bond?
That would come out of the bond. We have that initial, I mean, and I've asked Jason if maybe we could do in the September meeting, the bond wish list, go over it again so we can actually start working on what's going to be in there. But if you remember in our initial probable cost, he said 240,000, but then I put in that other information that I sent out that we could do, instead of doing one big storage building, we could do smaller buildings at each campus and stay under the amount required to have a engineer and an architect and come in substantially under that 240,000.
So that might help, just in case the bond doesn't pass, we'll still have storage, maybe?
Yeah, we still.
Maybe we could do one at a time or something?
Yeah, we didn't get any bids, by the way, so.
We didn't?
No, they looked at it and they said, no thanks. So, which is the same thing that's happened each time we've gone out for bids,
Okay.
is that people look at it and they realize just how much it's gonna cost to make it functional again, and then we don't get bids, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
Any other questions? Great questions.
With that $300,000 increase, what are the supply budgets for each campus? Will that change?
No, because we had a deficit budget to begin with, so
Okay.
it really won't affect anything. The supply budgets are not a significant portion of the budget. Let me pull up. Well, let me rephrase that. The unencumbered supply budgets, because like, for example, the electricity, the gas and stuff like that, that's stuff we have to do. So the stuff that's the optional stuff is really less than, probably less than 100,000 for the entire district. We just don't have a large excess in that. One of the choices we've made, and like for example in June when you guys decided to increase the amount that we paid the teachers, one of the choices as a district what we've made is we pay a significant amount to our teachers. And so by doing that, we've reduced the amount that we have available for supplies. Now we still, I mean, like if you've ever been told that, well, okay, we couldn't buy stuff because we couldn't provide our teachers with supplies, we just didn't have the money. Well, that's just not accurate. We find a way. I mean, usually when somebody comes to me, they say, hey, can we buy this? I'm like, we'll just have to find the pocket. Now sometimes, if it's an extravagant expense, then we'll have to say, well, we'll have to plan that in the future. But we've never, that I'm aware of, I mean, we've had maybe at a campus where there was a misunderstanding long ago, there was a I do remember an administrator told everybody, no, we don't have any money for paper or anything like that, and that was a misunderstanding. Because they did. They had plenty of money in their supplies budget. So like, for example, at the elementary, I think just supplies, pen, paper, stuff like that, I think it's roughly, I don't want to say roughly, let me look. I have to call up. Well, no, I will say roughly. Around $10,000 for supplies for the year.
Is that based on is that spread out across the teachers, or is that just a base budget?
That's just it's just budgeted for the campus. Very few individual teachers have an actual budget. Your special ed teacher will typically have a specific budget. A science teacher, there might be a specific budget for a science class. Technology has a separate budget from the supplies budget. So like Chromebooks and stuff don't go in that amount of money I'm talking about. But there are things that come out of that supplies budget, like for example, the software we use, the NWEA, it would come out of that budget. And so a lot of that budget gets eaten up just by the various programs that we use. But our supplies budget has held very relatively stable because, like for example, when HB3 passed a few years ago, we did do an enormous increase to what we paid the teachers, and so our supplies budget stayed roughly the same. So it has been roughly the same for several years. Now, we have put a lot of others, we've put money into the campuses. We use our instructional money to do, so most of our technology now is purchased with the instructional allotment instead of supplies money. So that all is money that's not even in the budget. Like all the boards that are on the walls, the Promethean boards that they use, all of that money came from an instructional allotment and it was never actually in the budget. Because what we do is you get an instructional allotment for a couple of years, and then that is to buy all your textbooks. But if you don't spend all that money in textbooks, and we almost never do, then the rest of it we spend on technology. So that's how we get the technology supplies as well.
So included like in that budget, is it like lamination paper, if they want lamination paper?
Yeah.
Or if they ask the administrator or whatever?
Yes, sir.
For X amount of color paper, laminated paper, whatever?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I can't ever remember a year where we ended the year and those supply budgets were empty. I don't ever remember a year since I've been here that we ended the year going, okay, there's not $1 left to buy stuff with. There's usually some left over in that budget. As a matter of fact, like I remember at the high school, when we get to the end of the year, we'd see how much was left and we'd buy desks. I really believe we have an ample amount in those supply budgets.
Okay. So is that from everybody asking for the things they needed, and then, that's what's left, right? We're not turning people away or anything like that, right?
Well, you do have to, some requests you have to,
I get some, but
yeah.
But that's not the gist of it,
Right. Typically we provide the teachers with what they request. If they request a 70-inch TV in their thing, well then the principal and them will have to negotiate that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, okay.
So. Okay, any other questions?
I think so. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then I need a motion.
I move to approve the budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Rusty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Billy. All in favor? No opposed, motion carries. Okay, and the tax rate.
Okay, so the ordinance to set the tax rate is what the attachment you have there. The tax rate is almost completely defined for us. We really don't have much say in it right now because the state is doing tax compression, so they'll calculate, like for example, we had a 2.9% increase in property value this year, which meant that our tax rate actually went down a little bit. And so the state said, okay, this is your rate. unless, you know, we do an election to try to raise the taxes, which we did not ask you guys to do that. So the tax rate's really pretty much set. We did go down a penny in INS tax rate and about, I can't remember how much exactly in M&O. But like I said, the M&O rate is really just dictated to us. TEA says this is the rate that you can do. And the INS we set just high enough to pay our bonded debt. And so the total rate, if I could get my screen to zoom in so I can actually see it, is 1.03023.
And that's the M&O, yeah.
That's, I believe that's everything.
No, 1.03.
No,
1.3023.
1.3023.
0.27, yeah. So altogether, it's 1.3023, right?
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so that corresponds to last year's rate.
I was trying to find it.
It's on the website. I moved its location just a few minutes ago. Let me hop up there. It'd be good if I spelled this if I see that.
2021 was 1.0323.27.
Yeah, it was just slightly.
Yeah, that's.
Right, so I have the 21 out there as a proposed, and then I have the 20 as, so last year's rate, the total rate was 1.3153. This year's total rate is 1.3023. So we're going down a tenth, basically, pretty close to.
Yeah, he was looking for this thing.
So like I said, we really don't have a whole lot of room to move on the tax rate, so that's why you have the proposed rate before. Now, if you will notice on the ordinance, it does say that this rate will bring in more revenue for maintenance and operation, because even though we had a 2.9, or even though the TEA required us to go down a little bit in rates, we did have a 2.9% increase in values, and so we will get just a slight amount more, and I do not have, excuse me, I do not have that exact figure. That assumes 100% collections. The county is telling us we are not going to get anywhere near our normal collections this time. So in the end, we probably won't get any money, but we have to say that based on 100% collections.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, if not, I need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance to set the 2021-2022 tax rate at 1.3023.
Okay, I have a first by Billy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mike. All in favor? No opposed, motion carries. All right, your turn again, Mr. Hunt.
Okay. So we brought to you several things about ESSER 3. Well, now we're bringing ESSER 2. Why they went 3 then 2, I have no idea. They went 1, because remember 1 paid for the elementary, the HVAC, the sanitization system. 3, we had a whole list of things that it was going to pay for. And now we're presenting to you our plan for 2, what we're going to use it to pay for, what we're proposing. And we'll be submitting the application for this next week. We can always amend the application later, so this is our anticipated expenses. We're going to do calculators for every single student. In the past, we've done a classroom sets of calculators, but as a, because remember, everything that you do in ESSER has to be related to COVID in some way. So, in order to reduce sharing of devices, to reduce the possibility of spread of COVID, we're going to get a calculator for every single kid. That'll also make doing the tests and everything a lot easier. Even if it wasn't a COVID expense, it'd be a great expense. So the fact that we can get the government to pay for it is great. And we anticipate that for the junior high and the high school to be around $50,000. We're going to put in bottle refill stations on the water fountains, so the kids can refill bottles and not have to drink from the fountain once again. That's actually something that several districts are doing to, as a COVID prevention mechanism, and it's just a good thing to do. Then we have some software. N2Y is a elementary software that's going to be used to address learning loss from the time of COVID. STAR Mastery workbooks. So we usually in the past have bought the workbooks just as a classroom set, and this time we're going to buy it for every single kid for the exact same reason as a calculator, so that nobody's sharing the workbooks. Band instrument cleaning. We had them cleaned this summer, so every single band instrument was cleaned, and we'll clean them each summer so that there is not, to try to make them more sanitary. IXL Learning is another learning loss piece of software that we're going to purchase. I can't remember if that's for the elementary or the junior high. It's for one. I think it's for the elementary. And then Common Lit is another learning loss piece of software that we're going to purchase, and it'll be for the junior high. We're also going to pay, we have a person that fogs the high school building twice a day, and we have a person that fogs the elementary building twice a day. We're going to pay a portion of their salaries out of the ESSER money, and then we're proposing to add a nurse at the high school and the junior high, and pay that out of ESSER grant. We'll have to make it evidently clear to the person that this is a 2-year position. I believe it's 2-year position, because the ESSER money will run out. And then we're going to pay a portion of one of my technology staff. We have one guy that does the vast majority of our Chromebook repair from when we went one-to-one. And we're going to pay a portion of his salary out of the ESSER 2 money as well. And if you notice, that gets me a little bit above what we're going to get. $327,000 in ESSER 2 funds, and I've got $339,000 of expenditures in here, once again, because the salaries are guesstimates, and TEA can come back and say we don't like that Common Lit program for some reason or something like that, so as an example. So I always try to plan more than they're going to actually give us, because in the end it'll equal out. So this isn't something that you guys will need to vote on, but it's just something that we'll bring to you to get any comments or our thoughts on. So, any questions?
Are we fogging the middle school?
Yes, the person that does the high school does the middle school as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't label that correctly.
I was kind of thinking it did, but I was just clarification. But on the bottle refill stations, what exactly is it, just out of curiosity?
It's like on the deal over here. So instead of having just this shelf that comes up, there's kind of like a hood that has a spout that you press the bottle, and the bottle, it fills the bottle.
So it doesn't touch, like if they've been drinking and they go do it?
You should be able to do it without that, yes. Without it touching, yes, sir.
Okay. Kind of so.
Some of our fountains can be just retrofitted, but some of them will have to be completely replaced. But we priced it out, and it was going to be around $50,000 for the entire district. I mean, that's every water fountain in the district. So, and that's one that a lot of districts are doing.
Does that do away with the actual drinking part of it?
You don't have to do it that way, and that the retrofits especially will not. So the drinking portion will still be there. Because in the retrofits, basically you're just doing the back end. Like this is not one of the ones that can be retrofitted. This one would have to be replaced. But in the ones that can be retrofitted, you're basically just taking out the back shelf and adding equipment to it.
But you could probably take that water line off the spigot.
The spigot there.
Recommend if you're doing that.
Yeah, the ones we replace, and we haven't got the exact models yet, because who knows what's going to be available when we actually do it. Because the global shipping crisis, everything is affected. I mean, every time we turn around, there is something that was available last week, and then next week it's not. But we anticipate the model that we have will be retrofits. It really doesn't cost that much more to do the full new, but the problem is that some of them are inset into the walls, and if we don't do a retrofit, then we're having to figure out how to repair walls and so on. the retrofit on some places, it's just, be more, it'll look better and still have the same functionality.
So when do you have to turn this in?
We'll do the application, it's due September 1st, so we'll be doing the application, I mean, we may even do it as soon as tomorrow.
Is there anything that didn't make it to the list that you wanted, and maybe you could do half of the, but I mean, like, maybe you could do half of the, you know, the water things and.
No,
you know,
I strained to find this
Did you?
list.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Because, like, for example, the foggers and the Chromebook technician, I mean, we're already paying those. So if there was something else that needed to be on the list that we left off, we could pay that out of, you know, it's already in the budget. And so we could remove that. And we'll be able to, you know, you have to submit an application, you have to say what you're gonna use the money for, but it doesn't mean that you can't amend the application. Like ESSER 1, we did 4 different things before we hit the final thing that it's gonna pay for. And initially I was gonna pay for utilities, then I was gonna pay for a bus, and then I got shot down by TEA on that one. So we did amendments until we finally came up with the one they approved, which was the HVAC at the elementary. So the list is not, it'll be a little bit fluid. Like, for example, if we get a great price on the calculators and we only spend $30,000, well, then I'll have to find something else to, you know, we don't want to pass up on the money if we can. So we'll have to find something else. It does have to be related to COVID. You have to be able to show it's either learning loss or direct something that will help prevent the transmission of the disease.
So I think we talked about it before, and maybe we had a bunch left over or something, some of the chemical for the foggers. Did we put that on one of the ESSER funds before, or did we?
We just don't spend that much on it. We probably haven't spent $500 total on the chemical.
But that'll cover, so like if you wanted to use bleach or the Lysol wipes, could you get those with like?
Once again, we literally, the entire amount for since we shut down till now, I've spent maybe $1,050 on cleaning materials. It just doesn't cost, like the foggers, we use a bleach tablet called a Pure Tab that's well, actually we use 2 different things. We use an ammonia-based product on the buses because there's no computer screens or stuff like that. It's a really good sanitizer. But in the classrooms, we use it's called a Pure Tab, and it's a chlorine-based product, so it's safe for computer screens and stuff like that. And I mean, it costs almost nothing. It's a very inexpensive material to do it. Then on the Clorox wipes, Walmart had a clearance, and they were selling them the 4 bundles for 50 cents a piece, and we went and bought every single one they had. So we've got a stockpile to last us. I imagine it'll last us well over a year. So we've been very good at maximizing our value for our dollar on our cleaning supplies. Now, I'm not saying
I just thought if they kicked something off here, I thought, man, why not load up on bleach and cleaning supplies? But
it's just that, you know, it's just a small amount, and we're trying to look for the bigger dollar items. Like if I get where I'm $1,000 short, absolutely I'm going to code all of this to the ESSER. But I suspect that I'll be over and actually have to pull some back off by the time it's done.
okay.
I will say we got some comments from the last ESSER meeting, and that's really where the workbooks came from, because we did get a comment on that one. So so we actually did get some. You know, most people they're like going, okay, what do you do COVID? You know, what do we do for COVID? Well, we clean the building, and it doesn't cost a whole lot to do that. So our biggest expense is a salary. So we have had to, like the bottle refill stations, we didn't come up with that. We called around and said, hey, what are you guys spending your money on? And found out that they're doing, everybody around us is doing the bottle stations. We're like, okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, any other comments, questions?
All right, Jason.
All right, my first is to review the student handbook. And again, this is something that y'all don't vote on because really it's done by TASB, since it sends us a model student handbook that the state goes by, and then we add, you know, really the school board policy into it. And so you know, that's the reason we don't vote on it. But do y'all have any questions over the student handbook?
What do you want changes to?
The changes to it really from last year to this year were basically names, some dates, attendance time, that kind of deal. There wasn't any, no, sir, no, sir. Because when we develop it, because I used to do it when I was the high school principal, I just take the model and had it on one screen and had, you know, the one we were currently on and make sure, you know, there wasn't any additions and and just updated it, so there wasn't anything this year that was, well, that needed to be changed, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like you say, there's a few names and just, I can't remember if it's this one or the next one. I was trying to get to page 20. I think there was something. I'll just do a search.
Okay.
Let's see. May have been the employee. I actually read through part of it. I had a long day. That's that HR person.
Page 20,
Yeah, no, okay, it's on the next one, I think.
unemployed.
Yeah, I think it's on the employee. I couldn't remember, I just remembered trying to make myself remember 20, so. Okay,
There's a section in here. Talks about prayer.
that's where the section of prayers is.
It says on page 6. Let the reading tone sound proper.
And I think any of the things like that we find, it's a living document, right? You just go back and change it.
That's why it's not board
Yeah,
adopted.
that's why it's not board adopted, just to explain to the people that haven't had to do this before. So if you do find a mistake or you do find something to change, since we don't vote on it, you can just send Jason a note and say, hey, on this page, it looks like this shouldn't be there, or this maybe is different, and it's a living document, so it can be changed.
Okay.
But like he said, most of it comes from TASB, and there's just sometimes a few things that maybe we've changed the way we did it because of COVID or because of personnel, and so that stuff's easy to change. Okay, Jason. Anybody have a question on the student handbook? All right.
So, we're moving to the employee handbook
Yes,
then?
yes. go
So
ahead.
on the employee handbook, there were no substantial changes as well. They did, in your last policy updates, they removed some verbiage, like on how leave was taken from that policy update, and then they moved it to the model handbook. So it's no longer policy, but it's in the handbook. I'm not 100% sure why they did that, but so the exact same wording is there. It's just shifted location. So there wasn't any significant change other than, you know, wordings. They cross out a D and put an A, and then we tried to find all the names and stuff to change.
How is, say a teacher is in close contact, has quarantine for 10 days, and then say a month later they get COVID. How do they handle that throughout? You know, does it take their days away?
It does currently take their days away. There used to be last year the federal government went in and said, you must give X number of days to employees. That expired in January. And then if memory serves me right, the board decided to not do that past May last year. And so now, if you're out, it does take your days. Now, I will say from the TEA, and none of this is actually in the handbook, so, yeah. And from TEA's guidance, an employee that is fully vaccinated does not have to quarantine from close contact. So I don't know, I guess that's an incentive.
I wasn't sure if it was in there or not.
Yeah, none of the COVID stuff is in the handbook. That's really just in the TEA guidelines that we get, because it changes even more rapid. We were expecting a meeting today for them to change a lot of stuff, and they decided not to have it, so, did you find your?
I did. I showed Jason, so y'all can fix it.
Okay. So any other questions about the employee handbook?
There wasn't really any big changes there at all, right?
No significant changes at all. Now, and I will say to Doug, on that point, if that's something that as a board you want to decide to do, to give days, I mean, you could ask to have that put on the next agenda, or an agenda, and say, hey, it shouldn't be taken away, because it's a good point. But it's,
Well, and I know, I mean, it's in my, like I said, I work for the state, but I know it's totally different, I get it.
yeah,
But it is in ours that, of course, they give us days for that, so I didn't know if it was offered for
yeah.
employees or not.
But currently, right now, it is.
Because you run out of days real quick.
Yeah.
You only get 10. So that would eat all your time up.
You got 3 or 4 kids at the house, it ain't gonna take long to eat it up.
Yeah, your 10-day quarantine, because you have to be out 14 days. Or is it 10 days? 10 days.
10 days now.
10 days now.
Bar
for
negative
now.
test.
Okay.
And that's if you have it, right? But if you've just been exposed, what is it? Is it
It's
still
10 days,
It's 10 days.
unless you have been vaccinated or you get a negative test.
Okay. So you can go get a negative test anyway, so you're good.
I'll send my request.
As of now.
Yeah, we should put it on the agenda.
How long do they have to wait to take a test?
There's no indication of that.
Because I know for us, you had to wait at least 3 days after being exposed before you take a test.
There is no specification of that in the TEA guidelines. So you could be exposed to take the test that day, and according to the TEA guidelines, you can come back.
And then 2 days later, you would actually come down with it.
Correct.
I think we just add it to the next meeting.
He's got his notes.
Okay.
It's in his notes. So we're good. We got it in the notes. Sounds like a good idea. Because where I work, you're out, you lose it. That's it, you use it, gone. But we,
Takes a bit
but
away
we,
from us,
but
they
we
get it
get
back.
more days for the year. I mean, we get more than 2 days, so. And we can borrow it. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Anything else? All right, so let's set the dates for the next meeting. For September. Okay, so Logan is not good for Thursdays. Hold on, I have to stick in my calendar, this thing. Where's my phone?
I know, to me, Wednesday's probably the best day.
Yeah, we changed it to Wednesdays before. Do y'all have things that you do on Wednesdays?
Well, they have practice, what days
No,
are
Wednesdays
you?
we don't.
Okay.
On Wednesdays.
Let's do it 28.
Oh, gosh, and I hope you mean of September.
Yeah. No, I'm good with whatever.
Okay, so do we,
Wednesdays are definitely better for me.
yeah, and I mean, I know you miss church, but it's one, and it's just, that are doing Wednesdays, okay. I know we used to not try to do it when Justin was on. Yeah. So 8th or the 15th, what are y'all, what's better?
Earlier the better. 8 to what?
8th
'Cause we're
or the
gone.
15th of September?
Yeah, because we're leaving the,
23rd.
I was supposed to be.
You got time to get it ready by the 8th?
I don't actually have a lot to do in the September because we don't have any expenditures of the new budget, so the only thing that I'll have will be the bond stuff, and I have that ready tomorrow. So, yeah.
8th good with you guys?
Okay, we're gonna do it the 8th at 6 o'clock. Nobody has anything else? I will move to adjourn at 6:40.
Second.
Second by Billy, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're